In Poland Pickup, there's a file called period last name fish. You will need to click on it to rename it to include your period number and your last name. Make sure you copy it to schools, not to your desktop. If it's on your desktop, it's going to be lost very soon. Once you get it in schools, go ahead and open it up. On this page, there's a couple of things that I want you to notice. First, there are these blue lines. Do you see these? These are called guides. And I do want you to notice that you can click and drag guides from the top or the side ruler, and that helps you align things on your page or space them on your page. The layer in your layers panel that has the guides has been locked so that you don't accidentally move them, because we're going to use them in this placement for later. On the second layer, which is called layer 2, is a fish that has already been put together for you, as well as all the pieces to another fish. So what I want you to go ahead and do is go ahead and double click on layer 2, and that is going to allow us to rename it fish. All right, so the first thing that I want you to do is go ahead and use your selection tool, and we want to select all of the parts of this top fish, and go ahead and Command G to group it together. That means that it will move together as one piece. Group is also up here under the Object menu. Now, we're just going to, one piece at a time, we're going to put this together. It's pretty easy, but I want you to remember that the selection tool is how you select things in order to move it. The direct selection tool is what you would use if you wanted to reshape something. Okay? So with this direct selection tool, go ahead and double click, and I'm going to zoom in to make this easier for you to see. Notice that if you double click on an anchor point with your direct selection tool, it becomes movable, bendable, whatever you want to call it. You can also then use your Bezier handles to adjust different parts of it as well. Okay, so I'm just adjusting that fin just a little bit, just to make it a little bit different. And then I'm going to go ahead and go back to where I can see my entire fish. And I'm going to start by putting the scales on the body. Now, you can use the same method by using the selection tool, but you have to be careful, because if you accidentally select other parts, then you wind up moving those too. Now, since these scales should always stay together, I'm going to go ahead and Command G. That way they stay as a group. And I can simply move them using my mouse and then fine-tuning it with the arrows on my keyboard and position them over the body. Okay? Then I'm going to get this top fin that I just adjusted, and I am going to get it lined up with this spot here. And if you look at the, I'm going to come in here so you can see, if you look at the sub-layers, you can see that this path is underneath, whoops, or behind this. Oh, there it is right above it. Okay, so that's going to allow me to really position this to where it's tight underneath and it doesn't leave a gap. Okay, and I maybe went just a smidge too far with it. There we go. Then I'm going to use the tail fin, and it also is going to go a little bit behind that body. Then I have this part of the fin, or this fin, it's going to go back here, and this one that's going to go right there. Then it's going to be time for me to add the face. And again, you'll want to use the keys, the arrow keys on your keyboard to fine tune and get these perfectly positioned. And I might want it a smidge up. Okay. And then it's time to put on the lips. And if I come, I'm going to start with the bright red lips and get that positioned, and then the black goes inside to make it look like the mouth is open, and it needs to go in a little bit more. There we go, that looks better. Okay, and then we have the eyes, and the eyes, you don't want them to be perfectly centered, because I'll show you, if you do that, it makes it look like crazy eyes. Okay, we want it to be a little bit off and make it look like it's looking in the direction that it's swimming. So that looks better. So I'll go ahead and group those so they stay attached, and then I'll move that down here as well. And I think I like the position of everything on that fish. So now I can select all of that part of the fish and I can group it together. Now if I look underneath my fish layer, notice that I have two groups. See the kind of circular thing here? That's showing me that that is the group that is selected. Okay. Now, the one thing I want to do is, before we move on, I want this fish to look just a little bit different. So I'm going to double click, because remember I just grouped this together. If I double click, notice that I go into the group. This is what is called isolation mode, and it allows me to go inside of a group or inside of an object to make edits. So here I'm going to click on that orange, and I'm going to go up here to the fill color, and I'm going to choose this blue right here. It's in the second row. Actually, the one right next to it, right there. Okay. And I am also going to choose the scales and change those to the same blue. So now if I select all those, notice that I double click to go into that group again, and I'm going to make that the same blue. Now to get back to the original, I'm going to have to use those arrows to get back out. Now I'm at the original, and now if I select it, it has the entire fish selected. Okay, but now I've got two different types of fish. So I could double click on that group and call it bluefish, and I can double click on this one and call it orange fish. And for the time being, I'm going to go ahead and lock that layer so that I don't accidentally create anything on it again. All right, now we're actually going to start by creating some new things, or some new shapes. And I'm going to want you to zoom in, and the part of the page that you want is actually going to be, whoops, right here in the center. You see how it was kind of like a tic-tac-toe? Oh, my mouse is being so... There we go. Kind of a tic-tac-toe board. So it's that center square. And I'm going to have to start off by creating a new layer. And on this layer, I'm going to call it background. Now, obviously, being that this layer is on top, it's not in the background yet, but ultimately we'll move it down. Okay? So here are all our shape tools. And remember that when you have a little triangle underneath it, that means that there are shapes docked with it. Now, Illustrator has this little tab to the side that allows us to tear out a section of tools so that we can use them. I'm going to start off by getting my rounded rectangle tool. And I'm basically going to fill this section right here, this square in the middle between all of the guides. And don't bother, you don't have to worry about drawing it with the correct colors yet because we're getting ready to change all that, okay? All right, so once you have that drawn and you can see that it fills that center square in between the guides, come up here to your fill colors in your control panel, and we're going to choose this dark blue right here. It's called, if you hover over it, it's called CMYK blue. It's a dark blue. We also have our stroke set to 0. Or not to 0. It's transparent. We're going to go ahead and make that a black stroke of 1 point. All right, now, obviously you know how to hit the lock key right here, the lock button. But right now, with this selected, if I hit Command and then the letter 2 on my keyboard, it's going to go ahead and lock that piece right there for me. Now, you don't see the lock here, but look at the sublayer. See how it's locked? That becomes very handy so that we don't accidentally mess with our work. Now, the next thing that we're going to use is going to be the polygon tool. Go ahead and get that and just click somewhere on your screen. It doesn't matter where. And when you just click as opposed to draw, you get this little options dialog box. We're not going to mess with the radius yet because we're going to change that, but set your sides at 3 so that we get a triangle, and then click OK. Now, the first thing I want you to do before we go on, since our triangle is the same color and it's hard to see, I want us to change it to a white fill, and I want a transparent stroke. Now, I'm using my selection tool, and I want you to remember that you can drag to resize things from ends, from sides, from corners. All of those are valid ways to resize. However, if you want to get something a specific size, the best way to do it is to use Transform panel right here. So with that selected, I am going to change, first off, I'm going to unlock so that it is no longer constrained. And I'm going to make the width 0.5 inches and the height 2 inches. Okay, and that's the perfect size for what I want. Now, the positioning of this is going to be a little tricky. The little point right here, and I'm going to zoom in more to make this just a little bit easier for you to see. The point right up here, where I want it is I want that to line up perfectly in the center of this rectangle. Now, Illustrator is really nice because it tries to help me when there's some sort of intersecting point. So you can see as I move this left and right, you see how that green line shows up in the middle? That means that that's perfectly in the center. Now if I drag this down as well, or up, aha, you see the little X that showed up there right in the middle? That's showing me that that tip is at the center of that rectangle. Okay, and you may need to press pause on the video so that you can move this around until you get what X? That, let me move it out of the way and so I can do it again. See that X right there? That X is showing me that it is in the center. Okay, both vertically and horizontally. I'm going to go ahead and end this video. You'll have to continue on part 2.